This video features the best brawlers that dominated throughout all of 2024. With the year coming to an end, let's recap and take a look at all the brawlers that completely broke the meta. And hang in there with me, guys. I'm a little sick right now, that's why my voice sounds like this, but let's just get into the video. But alright, the first brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Maisie. Now, even though Maisie was released in May of 2023, she dominated that entire year and into the beginning of 2024. She received 2 buffs in June of 2023, which helped propel her to the top of the meta for many months to come. She was considered one of the best brawlers after receiving her hypercharge in October of 2023, and she seemed to be unstoppable. Going into 2024, she was still dominating the meta with the likes of other brawlers we will get to later in this video. Now, one of the great things about Maisie's kit back in the day was her fast supercharge rate. When Maisie was first released, she could actually charge her super in only 3 shots. This made Maisie completely frustrating to deal with since she could hit multiple enemies, charge up her next super, and just keep cycling away. Unfortunately, when her supercharge rate was increased from 3 hits to 4 hits back in February, that really hurt Maisie in the meta. Now, another thing that made Maisie pretty broken was her disengage gadget and her tremor star power. The most popular and coolest thing you could do in Maisie was using your super, and then during the delay of your super exploding, activating your gadget to dash forward and towards the enemies. This way you could get closer to the enemies and increase your chances of hitting more shots. With how strong Maisie is now, this is still such an effective way to execute this build. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Lily. Now, Lily was released back in May of this year, and she was a good brawler, nothing broken. But something that shot her up to the top was when she got a rework to her main attack. Lily's ammo slot was increased from 1 to 2. So now Lily has an additional ammo slot to attack the enemies with, and this just basically doubles the amount of DPS she can do, which is nuts. Lily did receive a bunch of nerfs at the same time because she was still pretty strong, but with Lily having an additional bar of ammo, the community went crazy. Now, when Lily was first released, something that definitely took the game by storm was her vanish gadget. It was great because if you notice there's a lot of incoming damage coming your way, you can just activate your gadget and just escape into the shadow room for the next couple seconds and avoid all the heavy damage. You can also use it to hide inside of a bush and travel to wherever you need to go for the next 3 seconds and use that to get closer to the enemy. Basically, you could just avoid a dangerous situation, sneak up onto the enemies. I mean, the amount of scenarios that could change thanks to this gadget were endless. Now, earlier this year, before all the nerfs, Lily was definitely probably one of the most dominant assassins you can run throughout the entire game. With Lily's sneaky build, you could charge up your super with ease thanks to her trait and force the enemies back to avoid helping you charge up your super. Once charged, you can chuck your super at your target, backstab them with the help of the spiky star power, and smoke anybody down with her new buff. Lily has definitely fallen off towards the end of the year, but I don't think anybody's upset with this happening. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Frank. Frank has cracked this list because of the rework to his main attack delay and the addition of his new hypercharge that dropped in June of this year. Frank's main attack delay now decreases whenever his health gets lower. This has made Frank completely broken because his attack cooldown when he's about to die is basically nothing, and this allows him to kill anybody in the game as long as he has the ammo for it. And of course, we can't forget about Frank when he got his brand new hypercharge. With this hypercharge, Frank will be able to fire his super from all directions in a huge radius, and it helps to keeping the enemies far away from him first off, but secondly, it's hard for enemies to escape its range once they are within it. Also, considering that the hypercharge charge rate isn't extremely difficult to achieve like Miko, it makes getting it and using it even more game breaking. Now, considering how bad Frank was before all the buffs and reworks, it was pretty refreshing seeing Frank finally in the meta for once. This brawler used to be an absolute pain to play because the enemies could easily just run out of your main attack range or your super's range before it actually lands on the ground. But with the changes to Frank, he has become a lot more playable, a lot more annoying, but I think it's definitely deserved for a brawler that was stuck at the bottom of the meta for so long. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Draco. Now, Draco was released in June of 2024 and was insanely frustrating to face when he was in his alternate form. Draco was so strong that they ended up nerfing Draco later that month by reducing the damage reduction from 25% to 15% while he is in his alternate form. Since then, that is the only balance change that Draco has received, but that didn't stop him from being a broken brawler after his official release. Now, definitely one of the things that made Draco completely broken was his super. Draco hops onto his inflatable dragon, regaining 50% of his ammo and transforming into his alternate form for 10 seconds. While in this form, Draco's movement speed is increased by 20%, and back then he could gain a shield that reduces all damage he takes by 25%. This made Draco super tough to take down, especially when he got super close to his targets. But the thing that made Draco absolutely busted was his last stand gadget. With this gadget, Draco activates a shield for 2 seconds that causes him to take regular damage but prevents him from falling under 1 health. This is a great gadget to help you play a bit more aggressively for a few seconds, and there's no doubt that this gadget is going to be good to help you run towards the enemies to escape death, so use it to play aggressively and try to kill the enemy first. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Kit. Now Kit was released in January of this year and is the only brawler that could latch himself onto a teammate and ride them like a horse. He had the most broken stats ever that could basically keep his teammates alive and could assassinate anybody with an invincible shield. He could deal so much damage with his yarn balls attack that was just extremely broken, and had a broken build for 3v3s or solo modes that he was seen everywhere. Now thankfully Kit received a bunch of nerfs a week after his official release. Kit was so broken that he received basically emergency nerfs a week later to pretty much everything. His main attack damage was decreased, his supercharge rate was increased, his invincible shield was gone, and he could no longer attach himself to respawn brawlers. All of these nerfs were definitely needed, but there were still parts to his kit that helped him remain in the meta. Now let's briefly go over how strong Kit's build is and how it still helps him to this day. The first thing that was broken upon his release was his cardboard box gadget. This gadget was basically a mini Leon super that allows you to go invisible for a few seconds. I mean, the community was in shock with this gadget. Then he had two amazing star powers that could have totally different uses, but were still very helpful in their respective game modes. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Buzz Lightyear. Now Buzz Lightyear is the very first temporary brawler that will be available until the beginning of February, and just like the Edgar apocalypse, it has been a Buzz Lightyear apocalypse all December long. Buzz Lightyear was released earlier this month and was literally free for everybody that plays Brawl Stars. Unfortunately, this ended up flooding the game with millions of Buzz Lightyears and it was completely unplayable. It was so bad that people were just strictly playing ranked to avoid all the Buzz Lightyears since he can't be seen in rank. Now the first thing that makes Buzz Lightyear completely broken is his laser mode. Since you can ignite your target on fire for 4 seconds after you connect onto them, this will prevent the enemies from healing up kinda like with Crow's poison. This is awesome since you can easily apply pressure with each main attack and force the enemies to lose health faster and play more passively. However, hands down the most annoying thing about Buzz Lightyear is his saber mode. Just like with Surge, you can land on top of your target to deal 1920 damage onto them. This can be helpful to deal that extra damage onto brawlers that have more health, or if there are brawlers that have less than 1920 health, then you can just instantly kill them upon landing. They will even be placed in a slight hit stun when knocked back, so take advantage of that to get closer and swipe them to death. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Clancy. Now Clancy was released in July of this year, and he could arguably be one of the most broken brawlers ever upon release. It got so bad that it took the devs 12 nerfs to drop Clancy out of the S tier and out of the meta in general. There have only been a few other brawlers this year that have gotten such treatments, and we'll be getting to them very soon. Now Clancy was easily considered to be the best brawler in the game at that time was because of how broken he was at his stage 3. It was nuts because he gets an increase in his movement speed and he can deal 50% extra damage with his super. This turns Clancy into a killing machine that can deal huge amounts of damage from a point blank range or if he needs to cover a large area of the map. Clancy was basically unstoppable at stage 3 and there was nothing you could really do to stop him. To make things worse, he even had a gadget that helped him stage up even faster. All you have to do is activate the snappy shooting gadget and use your super at a point blank range to your target. This way you're increasing your chances of hitting more projectiles since obviously your super shoots out more projectiles than your main attack, right? So if you activate your gadget, then use your super onto an enemy, you should easily be able to get your next stage and more. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Kenji. Now Kenji was released in October of this year and was arguably one of the coolest brawlers ever released, but also one of the most broken brawlers ever released as well. He had a unique kit that involved 2 alternating main attacks and a super that could deal huge amounts of damage to the enemies. The thing that made him more broken was his Hosomaki healing gadget and his Nagiri Nemesis star power. I mean, the guy had no holes in his kit. Since his release, Kenji was nerfed 4 times and is still an A tier brawler inside the current meta. Now yes, definitely one of the most broken things about Kenji was his Hosomaki healing gadget. With Hosomaki healing, you can just escape death so many times and win almost any 1v1 engagement. If you're dealing with enemies that can deal lots of damage close up, you can immediately use your gadget and gain all the health right back up, which is pretty disgusting. And of course, the other thing that was very strong about Kenji was his Nagiri Nemesis star power. This star power was broken because you can tank so many different things in the game and literally take no damage at all. By tanking a high incoming attack from the enemy, this could save your teammates' lives for sure. By having the star power activated, this will allow you to play more freely since you have this massive shield to help you get closer to the enemies. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Mo. Now, Mo was released in September of this year and could be argued as one of the most broken brawlers that were ever released in 2024. Mo probably still has one of the best supers in the game, but it has been nerfed into the ground since his official release. Mo has received 11 nerfs to his entire kit and only one buff since he's been in the game, and only up until recently has he fallen out of the S tier inside the current meta. It is just so much harder to charge up his super, reload ammo, and deal damage with his main attacks. Now, regardless to all these nerfs that he's received, he still has an amazing super. Obviously, one of the best things about Mo is his ability to travel under the ground, right? So it's easy to take advantage of enemies that are low trying to heal up to get an easy kill. Even using your super to gain pressure up the map after surprising the enemy can relieve stress off of your teammates. Now, the other crazy thing about Mo was the knockback that he was able to do when he popped up out of the ground. What a lot of people were doing with Mo is that they would use their super to deal the knockback damage, put the enemy in that slight hit stun, and while they were stunned, they would exit the driller form and completely burst down the opponent with all 3 bars of ammo. It's a great way to close down the distance, but also deal damage and knock back your target. This was of course before the nerf where Mo would be left with whatever ammo he had before leaving his driller. But okay, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be the twins, Larry and Laurie. Now, the twins are probably the most broken brawlers ever upon their official release. Forget 2024, like ever. They were released all the way back in January of this year, and when they were finally in the game, oh my god, I seriously wanted to uninstall Brawl Stars. The fact that Laurie could attack, deal damage, and pile all that onto how annoying Larry already was, I mean, it was such a gruesome year with the twins in the game. Now, luckily, the twins have been nerfed heavily just like all the other brawlers inside of this list. The twins have received 12 nerfs throughout the entire year, revolving around their health, main attack damage, supercharge rate, and many other aspects to their kit. Unlike Mo, however, some could still argue that the twins are still within the low S tier or high A tier. It's definitely debatable, but one thing is for sure, that the twins are still pretty damn good. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that video, make sure to go ahead and check out this video right here.